The alien hall was silent, except for the echo of heavy boots on stone. Tall warriors with shining armor stood on both sides, their spears crossed like iron gates. In the center of the hall, under a throne made of black rock, sat the alien leader. His eyes glowed faintly like embers in the dark, and his voice was sharp as a blade. Before him stood the human. Chains wrapped around his wrists and ankles, clinking with every breath he took. He was tired, bruised and bleeding, but he did not look down. His gaze met the alien leader's eyes with stubborn fire. "You are nothing," the alien leader said. His voice carried across the chamber, filled with cruel amusement. "Your kind thinks it is strong, but here you are weak. You are prey, and today you will be sent to face the beast." A ripple of laughter moved through the alien council. Their sharp teeth gleamed as they leaned forward, hungry for entertainment. To them, this was not justice. This was a show. The human clenched his fists, his chains rattling. "If you think death will silence me," he said, his voice low but steady, "you know nothing of humans." The aliens laughed harder. One of the council members hissed, "Arrogant creature, you won't last a moment." Another added, "The beast has crushed stronger bones than yours." But the leader raised his hand, and the laughter died. His smile was slow, mocking. "You will go into the beast's lair with nothing but a blade. No armor, no allies. Tradition will decide your fate. If you live—" He leaned forward, eyes glowing brighter. "Then tradition will force us to honor you, but you will not live." The chains were unlocked, and the human was dragged forward. Alien guards shoved him toward the great doors at the far end of the hall. The massive gates groaned open, revealing a path that led down into darkness. From somewhere far away, a deep roar echoed, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The crowd leaned in with excitement. Every alien in the hall knew the sound. It was the roar of the beast. The human did not flinch. His face was pale, but his jaw was set like stone. As the guard shoved a crude blade into his hand, he gripped it tightly. It was old, chipped, and far too small for what awaited him, but it was better than nothing. "Walk," the guard hissed, shoving him toward the path. He stumbled forward, but then straightened his back. If this was the end, he would face it standing tall. He would not give them the pleasure of seeing him crawl. The path was long and narrow, the air heavy with dust and the faint smell of blood. Every step echoed against the stone, and the roars grew louder. The walls trembled as if the beast already knew he was coming. Behind him, the great doors slammed shut with a thunderous boom. The alien crowd cheered, their voices rising in a cruel chant, "Beast, beast, beast!" The human walked on, his heart pounding. He knew what they expected. No one returned from the beast's lair. The bones of past victims lined the path ahead, pale reminders of failure. Skulls cracked and broken, armor torn and rusted, weapons snapped like twigs. For a moment, doubt whispered in his mind. Could he truly survive this? The beast was said to be larger than a house, stronger than 100 men, and faster than an arrow. Every warrior who faced it had died. What chance did he have with nothing but a dull blade in his bare hands? But then he thought of Earth. He thought of his people, his family, his friends. He thought of the stories of humanity's past, of warriors who faced hopeless battles and won, of survivors who rose from fire and ash. Humanity had always stood against impossible odds. Why should this be different? He whispered to himself, a promise no alien would ever hear. I will not die for their laughter. If I die, it will be on my terms, and if I live, I will make them regret this. The tunnel grew wider. The air turned hot, thick with the smell of fur and rot. Claw marks slashed the walls, deep enough to cut stone. The ground shook again, as the beast roared, closer this time. The human raised his blade, his knuckles white against the hilt. Sweat ran down his brow, his breath quick and shallow, but his eyes burned with determination. From the shadows ahead, 2 glowing eyes appeared. Massive, unblinking, the size of shields. The beast had awakened. The alien crowd outside cheered louder, but inside the cavern, silence ruled. Only the low rumble of the monster's growl filled the air. The human took one step forward, then another. Fear clawed at his chest, but he refused to stop. This was no longer their trial. This was his battle, and he would fight it to the end. The cavern was dark. So dark that even the faint glow from cracks in the ceiling barely touched the stone floor. The human stood still for a moment, his blade trembling in his hand, not from weakness but from the sheer size of the shadow moving in front of him. The beast stepped forward. Its claws scraped the stone, sparks flying as if the rock itself tried to resist its weight. Its body was huge, covered in thick plates of bone and muscle. Its breath hissed through long, curved teeth, each one longer than the human's arm. Two eyes, glowing like burning coals, locked onto him. The human's heartbeat thundered in his chest, but he kept his ground. Running was death. Hesitation was death. His only chance was to fight smart. Fight like a human. The beast let out a roar that shook dust from the ceiling. The sound pressed against him, rattling his bones, making his ears ring. His knees almost buckled, but he forced himself upright, gripping his blade tighter. "Come on then," he whispered, voice sharp. "Let's finish this." The monster lunged faster than he thought possible. Its massive paw came down, claws slicing the air. The human dove aside, rolling across the stone floor, feeling the wind of its strike pass inches from his body. The impact cracked the ground where he had stood. He scrambled up, gasping for breath. His blade flashed, cutting across the beast's leg, but the strike barely scratched its armored hide. The creature snarled, more annoyed than hurt, and swung again. The human ducked behind a jagged rock, stone shattering as the beast's claw smashed into it. Shards cut his face, warm blood dripping down his cheek. He wiped it away and kept moving. He could not let the beast corner him. He remembered the stories of Earth. Hunters who faced lions with only spears. Soldiers who fought tanks with nothing but courage and fire. Humans were weak in body compared to monsters and machines, but they had always been clever. Cleverness had saved them before. Cleverness would save him now. He scanned the cave. The ground was uneven, stones loose, bones scattered everywhere, weapons broken and rusted from past victims, but even broken things could be useful. Even bones could become tools. The beast stalked him, each step shaking the ground. It sniffed, the air growling low, hunting him like prey. The human bent quickly, grabbing a long broken spear from the ground. Its shaft was cracked, but the point was still sharp enough. He planted it between two rocks, angled upward. A trap. One chance. He shouted, his voice echoing through the cavern. "Over here!" The beast turned, its eyes narrowing, and charged. The ground trembled as it thundered forward. Its jaws opened wide, teeth glistening. The human waited until the last heartbeat, then dove aside. The monster crashed straight into the hidden spear. The point drove deep into its chest, and the beast roared in pain. The sound was deafening, a scream that shook the very walls. It staggered back, bleeding black smoke like blood that hissed when it touched the ground. But it did not fall. The spear broke in half, leaving only a wound that seemed to make it angrier. The human pushed himself up, panting. His arms burned, his chest ached, but he kept going. He couldn't stop now. The beast swung its massive tail, and the impact threw him against the wall. Pain exploded in his ribs. His vision blurred, but he forced himself to stand again. Weakness meant death. He lifted his blade, steadying it in front of him. "You'll have to do better than that," he growled, blood on his lips. The beast roared again, charging once more. This time the human didn't run. He slid to the side, slashing with all his strength across its softer underbelly. The blade cut deep, finally finding a place where armor did not protect. The beast shrieked in fury, clawing wildly. One strike grazed his arm, ripping flesh. He cried out but held onto his weapon. Step by step he fought, dodging and cutting. Each move cost him blood, but each strike drew more from the monster. His body was weaker, but his will was stronger. At last the beast paused, wounded and bleeding. Its massive chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. The cavern stank of smoke and blood. The human stood opposite it, shaking, barely holding himself upright. But his eyes burned brighter than the beast's. "You thought I would die here," he whispered to the darkness, though his words were meant for the alien leader who had sent him. But humans don't die easy. The beast roared one last time, charging again. The ground split under its weight. The human tightened his grip, waiting for the final clash. And as the darkness swallowed them both, the cavern echoed with the sound of steel meeting flesh, roar meeting defiance, and fate being rewritten. The clash of man and monster shook the cavern like thunder. Dust rained from the ceiling, bones rattled across the floor, and the echoes of the fight rolled through the tunnels like a storm. The beast charged again, jaws snapping, teeth shining, in the dim glow. The human threw himself to the side, rolling across sharp rocks that cut into his skin. Pain burned his body, but he ignored it. He had no choice. Survival meant movement. Survival meant never standing still. The creature's claws tore deep gashes in the stone where he had stood only seconds before. Sparks flew and the ground split under its weight. The beast roared, furious that its prey still lived. The human stumbled to his feet, clutching his cracked blade. His chest heaved, his ribs ached, and warm blood dripped from his arm. Still, he raised his weapon, his eyes locked on the monster. "Come on," he whispered through clenched teeth. "I'm not done yet." The beast's tail swung like a whip, and the human ducked low. The strike smashed into the wall, sending rock and dust flying. The cavern shook again, but this time the man used it to his advantage. He dashed toward a pile of broken bones scattered across the floor. Among them, he found what he needed: an old skull, cracked but heavy. Without hesitation, he hurled it with all his strength. The skull smashed against the beast's eye. It wasn't enough to blind it, but it stunned the creature for a breath, and a single breath could mean survival. The human lunged forward, slashing at its wounded belly. His blade dug deeper this time, cutting through flesh. The beast bellowed, its cry echoing so loud the cavern seemed to scream with it. The smell of burning blood filled the air as dark smoke hissed from the wound. But the human's victory was short. The monster's paw struck out faster than lightning and caught him across the chest. He flew backward, his body slamming into stone. His breath left him in a single gasp. His blade clattered across the floor. Pain crushed him. Every rib felt broken. His vision blurred, black spots crowding his eyes. For a moment he wanted to give in, to let the darkness take him. But then he remembered the alien hall, the laughter, the mocking words. "You will not live." And he remembered Earth, humanity, the people who had always stood against impossible odds. He thought of them, and fire returned to his eyes. He forced himself up, spitting blood. Crawling, at first, then dragging himself to his knees. His hand closed around the blade once more. The beast stomped forward, confident now, eager to end it. Its glowing eyes narrowed, its chest rising with heavy, angry breaths. The human's voice cracked, but it was steady. "I don't die so easily." The beast roared and leapt, its shadow swallowing him. But this time the human was ready. He dove aside at the last heartbeat, sliding beneath its belly as it landed. His blade tore across the wound he had already made, opening it wider. The monster howled in pain, twisting and thrashing. Its tail smashed into the walls, rocks tumbling down, but the human stayed close, refusing to let go of his chance. He drove the blade again and again into the weak point, each strike fueled by rage and desperation. Black blood sprayed across him, burning his skin like acid, but he did not stop. His screams mixed with the monster's roars until they became one sound: pain, fury, and survival. The beast collapsed to its knees, its strength failing. Still, it tried to rise. Still, it tried to fight. But the human climbed its back, using its own bones as footholds. With a final cry, he drove the blade deep into the back of its skull. The monster convulsed once, twice, then fell silent. The cavern shook one last time, then grew still. The human stood over the lifeless body, chest heaving, blood dripping from wounds, both his and the creature's. His blade was broken, his body broken, but he still stood. He had done what no alien believed possible. He had slain the beast. For a long moment he simply stood in silence, staring at the fallen monster. Then slowly, with trembling hands, he began to tear bones from its body, massive ribs, sharp teeth, fragments of armored hide. He would not only survive, he would return wearing its remains. He whispered into the darkness, voice rough but filled with fire. You sent me here to die, but I will return as proof that humans cannot be destroyed. And with that, he dragged the first piece of the beast's armor onto his shoulders. The alien city was alive with noise. The great hall was filled once more, the High Council seated upon their thrones and warriors crowding the edges of the chamber. Their voices rose in cruel laughter and sharp whispers. He is gone, one sneered. No human could last a single night, another replied. The beast has claimed him, as it has claimed all before him. The alien leader sat tall upon his throne, his cruel smile widening. It is finished. The human is no more. Let this be a lesson to his kind. They are prey, nothing more. The crowd roared with approval. The sound of their victory echoed through the stone walls. They believed the human was dead. They believed tradition had done its work, but then the gates trembled. At first it was faint, just a distant sound of heavy steps. The crowd fell silent, listening. The warriors looked at each other, confused. The steps grew louder, closer, echoing like drums of war. The massive doors of the hall creaked, then shuddered, then slowly swung open. Dust and smoke drifted in. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, through the haze, a figure appeared. The human. He stood in the doorway, bloodied and torn but alive. More than alive. His shoulders were draped in the massive bones of the beast. A rib cage had been carved into armor across his chest. Around his neck hung teeth the size of daggers. His weapon was broken, but in his hand he carried the beast's skull, dragging it across the floor with a sound that silenced the hall. Gasps filled the chamber. The council rose from their seats in disbelief. It cannot be, one whispered. Impossible, said another, their voice shaking. The alien leader's smile vanished. His glowing eyes narrowed, rage flickering within them. No, he could not survive. But there he was. The human stepped forward, slow and steady, each step echoing like thunder. His body was weak, his wounds deep, but his will was unbroken, and on his face, beneath the blood and sweat, burned a fire no alien could deny. He dropped the skull with a crash in the center of the hall. The sound shook the chamber. Dust rose, bones cracked, and the silence that followed was heavier than any roar. By their own law, by their own tradition, he had earned honor. To slay the beast was to prove strength. To return wearing its remains was to demand respect. The aliens knew this, and though fear twisted in their eyes, none dared to speak against it. The human raised his voice, rough but steady. You sent me to die. You mocked my kind. You thought humans weak. He pointed to the skull at their feet. This is what your beast thought of me. This is what your tradition thinks of me. I am still here. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Warriors who had laughed now bowed their heads. Even the council shifted uneasily. But the alien leader rose from his throne, fury boiling in his voice. You dare stand here and claim honor? You are nothing but a savage. This changes nothing. The human's eyes locked onto him. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Then he spoke, calm and sharp. This changes everything. Not because I say so, but because your own laws say so. The leader's jaw clenched. He knew the truth of it. By their oldest traditions, the one who returned from the beast's lair had the right to demand respect, even to challenge the leader himself. The crowd shifted, whispering louder now. Some voices rose in support of the human, others hissed, in anger, afraid of what this would mean. The human took another step forward, the beast's bones clattering against him like drums of war. He did not need to raise his weapon. He did not need to shout. His presence alone was enough. I came here in chains, he said, his voice steady. But I return as proof of what humanity is. You will never call us weak again. You will never call us prey again. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some cheered, some cursed, and some stood frozen in disbelief. But one truth was now carved into the stone of their traditions. The human had returned in glory. And in that moment, a legend was born. The hall of the Alien Council had never been so silent. Every warrior, every advisor, every noble stared at the human who now stood before them. The skull of the beast lay at their feet, a dark reminder of what he had done. The bones of the monster clattered on his shoulders like armor from another world. Tradition spoke louder than the council's pride. For generations, the beast had been the trial that none could overcome. To be sent into its lair was to die. Yet here stood a human, battered and bleeding, but alive. And not only alive, he stood victorious. Whispers filled the chamber. It is impossible. He should not be breathing. No warrior has ever returned. The alien warriors shifted uneasily. Some lowered their eyes in respect while others glared with hatred. But one truth pressed upon them all. Their law was clear. Whoever returned wearing the beast's bones could not be denied honor. The alien leader rose from his throne, his dark cloak sliding across the stone. His eyes glowed hotter than fire, his voice sharp as iron. This is a trick. He cannot claim honor. He is human. He is nothing. But an elder council member stood, his voice trembling but firm. Leader, the law is older than all of us. The beast's death is proof. The law binds us all, even you. Gasps spread through the room. To challenge the leader was rare, but tradition gave the elder strength. The leader's fists clenched. He wanted to strike the human down where he stood. Yet even he could not ignore the ancient code. If he broke tradition, his own people would turn against him. The human said nothing. He let the silence work for him. The bones on his chest spoke louder than any words. He had faced death and returned, and no insult could erase that truth. Finally, the leader pointed at him, his voice dripping with rage. You may live, human. By law, you may stand here. But do not think this makes you one of us. You are still an outsider. You are still prey. The human's gaze was steady, his voice calm. If I am prey, then what does that make your beast? What does that make the warriors who fell before it? The hall erupted with gasps. Some aliens even laughed nervously while others hissed with fury. The insult cut deep, but the truth behind it cut even deeper. The leader's jaw tightened, but he could not answer. The human took another step forward, dragging the skull with him. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. He placed it at the foot of the throne and spoke again. I did not come here for honor. I did not come here to change your laws. You sent me to die, and I lived. That is enough. The crowd murmured, louder. Some voices shouted for him to be respected. Others cried for him to be executed anyway. But the law was stronger than all their anger. The human had won his place by tradition, whether they liked it or not. The leader raised his hand, silencing the chamber. His eyes burned into the humans, filled with hatred and fear. Very well, you have returned. You have earned what tradition demands. But remember this. Honor does not protect you forever. One day your strength will fail, and when it does, I will be waiting. The human did not look away. His reply was simple, sharp, and unforgettable. And when that day comes, I will return again, just like today. The hall froze in silence once more. Even the leader's rage could not shake the weight of those words. The alien warriors, who had once mocked him, now looked at him differently. Some with respect, some with envy, and some with fear. The legend of the human was already spreading among them. Tradition had been turned into a weapon, and it was a weapon the human had used against them all. Outside the hall, word spread quickly through the alien city. By nightfall, every warrior knew the story. The human who had gone into the beast's lair and returned wearing its bones. Some whispered he was chosen by fate. Others whispered he was a curse, but all agreed on one thing. He had changed everything. The human returned to his chamber, his body heavy with pain. Yet even as his wounds burned, he allowed himself a faint smile. He had not only survived, he had forced them to honor him. He had turned their own tradition into his shield. But deep inside he knew this was only the beginning. The leader would not forgive. The council would not forget. The real war was not against the beast. It was against those who feared what humans could become, and he was ready. The chamber still buzzed with whispers long after the beast's skull hit the floor. The aliens could not forget what they had seen. The human had broken their expectations, shattered their pride, and forced their own law against them. But tradition was not finished. There was one final truth in their code, one last path that no one dared to speak aloud. The human knew it. And so did they. By ancient rule, the one who returned from the beast's lair did not just win honor. He won the right to challenge the leader himself. The alien warriors shifted in their places, uneasy. Some whispered, "Will he claim it?" Others hissed, "He wouldn't dare." The human stood in silence, his chest rising and falling with steady breath. His wounds ached. His body was weak, but his spirit was iron. He looked at the alien leader who sat stiff upon his throne, trying to hide the fear that burned behind his glowing eyes. Finally, the human spoke. His voice was not loud, but every word struck like a hammer. "I faced your beast. I wore its bones. By your law, I now have the right to claim more. And I do." The hall gasped. Shock rippled through the council. Even the guards gripping their spears flinched. The human had spoken the unthinkable. The leader's face twisted with fury. "You dare? You, a human, claim the right to stand against me?" The human did not blink. His words were calm, sharp as steel. "I dare because your law gives me the right. Your tradition is older than your throne, and it bows to me now, not you." The leader's hands clenched the arms of his seat until the stone cracked beneath his grip. Rage burned in his eyes, but he could not deny the truth. The law was clear. The hall knew it. His own people knew it. The warriors in the chamber began to murmur louder, their voices split. Some shouted for the leader. Others, surprisingly, called out for the human. Honor is his. He has the right. No human should rule. He survived what no one else could. The noise grew until it shook the hall itself. The alien leader rose to his feet, towering above them all. His cloak fell behind him like a shadow of fire. "Enough!" he roared. The hall fell silent. If this human wishes to claim his right, then let him speak it before all. The human stepped forward, dragging the broken blade behind him. The sound echoed through the hall, scraping stone, demanding attention. He stopped at the base of the throne and looked up, his gaze unwavering. "I claim my right," he said. "Not for power, not for your throne, but for my people. You call us prey, you call us weak, but I am proof that you are wrong. Humanity is strong, and I will not let you forget it." The council erupted in chaos. Some shouted for his death, others for his honor. The leader's jaw tightened, but his face betrayed something he had never shown before: doubt. For the first time, he was afraid. The human continued, his voice rising, each word burning into the chamber. "I did not ask for this fight. You forced it upon me. You sent me to die, and I came back stronger. If your laws mean anything, then I am no longer your prisoner. I am your equal. And if your laws are nothing, then your people will see you for the coward you are." The alien warriors stirred. Their glowing eyes shifted from the leader to the human. Respect, fear, and admiration mixed in their stares. The leader could not remain silent. His pride, his power, his very rule hung in the balance. He stepped down from his throne, his cloak brushing the ground. "Very well, human. You want to claim your right. Then you must fight me. Not with laws, not with words. With blood." The crowd roared, some in excitement, some in dread. The air vibrated with energy. The human did not flinch. He raised his broken blade. "Then let it be so." The leader sneered. "You will regret this. The beast was nothing compared to me." but the human only replied with words that silenced the entire hall. The beast thought the same. The chamber froze. Even the torches on the walls seemed to flicker at those words. The leader's rage was beyond measure now, but there was no turning back. The law had spoken. The human had claimed his right, and soon the hall itself would witness a battle that would decide more than honor. It would decide the future. The great hall shook with voices as the human and the alien leader faced each other. The skull of the beast still lay between them, a silent witness to what had come before. The crowd pressed closer, their glowing eyes fixed on the two figures, who now stood at the edge of history. The leader raised his weapon, a long curved blade that glimmered under the firelight. He towered over the human, his armor gleaming with dark symbols of power. His voice echoed across the chamber. "You survived the beast, but this is no cave. This is my throne, and here I decide who lives and who dies." The human stood bloodied, his broken blade trembling in his hand. Yet his eyes burned brighter than any alien flame. His voice was calm, steady, and sharp. "You tried to kill me once. You failed. This time will be no different." The leader roared and charged, his blade slashing down with the weight of a mountain. The human dove aside, rolling across the stone floor. The strike shattered rock where he had stood, sparks exploding into the air. The crowd gasped. The human came up fast, striking back. His broken blade clashed against the leader's weapon, sparks flying. The leader was stronger, faster, but the human was quicker, sharper. He used every ounce of skill, every scrap of cunning to stay alive. Again and again the leader struck, his fury like a storm. Again and again the human dodged, blocked, and countered. His body screamed in pain, but his spirit never wavered. At last, the leader roared in rage and swung too wide. The human ducked under the strike and slammed his broken blade into the gap of the leader's armor. The weapon bit deep. The leader howled, stumbling back, his blood spilling across the floor. The crowd roared with shock. The human pressed forward, relentless. Each strike was weaker than the last, but his will made them strong. He cut again and again, driving the leader backward, forcing him toward the beast's skull. Finally, the leader stumbled and fell, crashing down beside the skull. His weapon clattered away. His eyes glowed with fury and shame. The human stood over him, panting, trembling, but unbroken. He raised his blade for the final strike. The hall waited, every breath held, every eye locked on him, but then slowly, he lowered the weapon. "I could kill you," the human said, his voice carrying through the silence. "But I will not. Not because I am weak, not because I am afraid, but because I will not become what you are." The leader's eyes widened. The crowd gasped again. Mercy was not their way. Mercy was not their tradition. Yet here stood the human, sparing the one who had tried to destroy him. He stepped back, letting his broken blade fall to the ground. "This is the difference between you and me," he said. "You rule with fear. I stand with honor. That is what makes humanity strong. That is why we endure." The hall erupted. Some shouted in outrage, but others, many others, raised their voices in respect. The alien warriors bowed their heads. The council lowered their gaze. Even those who hated him could not deny the truth. The human had not only defeated the beast, he had defeated their leader, and by sparing him, he had shown a strength greater than any blade. From that day, the story spread across the city, then across the stars. The tale of the human who was sent to die, who returned wearing the beast's bones and who stood against a ruler without fear. Whispers became legends. Legends became history. And history gave birth to a truth no alien could erase. Humans are not prey. Humans are not weak. Humans are a force that cannot be broken. The human walked from the hall in silence, his head high, his body weary, but his spirit unshaken. Behind him, the chants began. Soft at first, then louder. "Honor! Honor! Honor!" It was not just a cry for him. It was a cry for what he represented, humanity itself. And so a legend was born. A legend that would live far beyond that hall, beyond that world, beyond even the stars. The legend of the man who faced death, defied tradition, and returned, not as prey, but as a hero,